I'm Greg Hunter, and welcome to an Announcer's Booth special here on the ECS Network. When last I joined you, we were talking about WrestleMania the day after, and now it is several months later. We are still, myself and JJ, trying to figure out how to make our respective schedules work out to where we can come back together and start recording some new episodes of the Announcer's Booth for you. But until then, right now, the biggest thing in professional wrestling, the biggest thing in sports entertainment, is the WWE Brand Extension. They're splitting up again, and Raw and Smackdown are about to become two separate entities once more. Now, we are literally 2 days away from this happening. This is going up on a Sunday. The whole thing is going down in just a couple of days on the first live SmackDown in quite some time, and it's going to be the first of the all-new live SmackDown, much like the live Monday Night Raw. And what we're going to do today is talk about not who I would put on which roster, because frankly that would take forever, but more of a generalization of what I think they need to do for the WWE brand split to work. Now we're going to start with what we already know. We know that with the exception of the Big Four, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series, the other 8 months of the year, we'll have 2 pay-per-views each. One Raw, one SmackDown. Guess that's a benefit of having your own network. Then, we know that Raw will remain a 3-hour live show on Monday night. SmackDown will now become a Tuesday night 2-hour live broadcast. We know that Shane McMahon on SmackDown will be the commissioner and will have a GM under him. And likewise, there will be a GM under Stephanie as Stephanie assumes the role of commissioner of Monday Night Raw. Now, the one thing that we suspect, and I sincerely hope I'm wrong, is that we are also about to see the return of the 2 world titles, the WWE Championship and the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, I hate this concept because frankly, they spend an awful lot of time and effort to combine the 2 world titles into one and to create the WWE World Heavyweight title. But the simple fact that they've started referring to Dean Ambrose simply as the WWE Champion seems to lend credibility to the idea that we're going to wind up with 2 champs once again. But let's take a look at what I think is necessary, and this is solely my opinion, as to what you would need to do to make the brand extension work. How do you make each of these 2 brands separate? You have to make them unique in and of themselves. One can't be the B show to the other, or you're defeating the purpose. You need to make SmackDown, which is forever thought of as the subservient brand to Raw. You need to make SmackDown relevant, and you need to make it different. That's how you make sure that people want to watch both shows, or even potentially, if they're only going to watch one, because 5 hours of wrestling in 2 days is a heck of a deal these days, maybe they pick SmackDown over Raw. It's time to start introducing multiple flavors of sports entertainment. Here's how you do it. Monday Night Raw is a 3-hour show, which means that you have more time to play with. A lot of people may think of it as a burden. How do you fill up a 3-hour broadcast? But the other side of that coin is, with a 3-hour broadcast, you also have the ability for more vignettes, more interview time. You have the ability to play more than you would on a smaller show. So, let Raw be the entertainment half of the sports entertainment equation. Over on SmackDown, shorter show, 2 hours, more compact, and it needs to be different than Raw, so this is the sports half of the sports entertainment equation. All the way down to the way they are presented. You need to have Michael Cole and the King on Monday nights. This is for such a long time known as your broadcast team, the entertaining broadcasters, put them on Monday nights. Then have Ronaldo and JBL, yes, that's what I said, put them on SmackDown. Because one thing, JBL does have a legitimate cachet as an analyst. not as a professional wrestling or sports analyst, but as an analyst for financials and such. He's been on numerous such shows over the years. And if you've ever seen the Legends with JBL specials on the WWE Network, he can pull off a sports-driven style presentation. He does it there. So let them be the broadcast team over on SmackDown. The Intercontinental title becomes the #1 prize on Raw. The U.S. Heavyweight Championship fills that role on SmackDown. And you start treating them not as mid-card titles, but rather as the stepping stone to the World Championship. You elevate them to where they could carry a main event on a pay-per-view. That's going to become really necessary. Make sure you do that. Make sure that if The Miz comes out as the Intercontinental Champion and says, I'll be the Intercontinental Champion until I'm ready not to be, because the next time Dean Ambrose rolls into town, he deals with The Miz when he puts his world title on the line. Or if you have the U.S. Heavyweight Championship and you have Rusev, ruling the roost over on SmackDown, you can have him sit there, who better to be the world champion than the Bulgarian Brute, the U.S. Heavyweight Champion, the #1 contender to the world title. Build these belts up. Make them mean something. And make sure that everyone knows that if you are the Intercontinental or the U.S. Heavyweight Champion, that you are a 3 count away from the world title. Now, on Raw, it's a 3-hour show. You have more time. This is where the women's title winds up. It becomes exclusive to Raw. What I'm about to say is not something that I like saying, and it's not something that I would ever want to see happen. But professional wrestling has borne what I'm about to say to be true on multiple occasions. As long as the women are performing and drawing money, they'll stay at the top of the card. The second they start to slip, they will get buried. That's the bottom line. So, what you do is you take the ladies, you make them exclusive to one brand so that their half of the card is loaded. Don't dilute the pool. There's a reason NXT used to call Sasha and Charlotte and Becky and Bayley the 4 horsewomen of NXT, and it's because they put the brand on their shoulders and carried it. They built the women's division from the ground up, and that's what's going to be necessary to make sure that the women's division flourishes. So more time, more opportunities, let the women stay on Raw. Take the tag titles and move them over to SmackDown. When you put those tag team titles on SmackDown, now you can take teams like American Alpha or The Revival or any of the plethora of tag teams that have been pretty interesting here as of late on the main roster. Maybe Tyler Breeze and Fandango, maybe R-Truth and Goldust, and litter them into this picture, the New Day, and let this be the tag team division. Let it be just that, its own division over on SmackDown. And do not cross-pollinate these two. There don't need to be any women on SmackDown at all. And while I'm not saying you never put a tag match on Raw, if you do have a regular tag team form for any lengthy period of time, maybe it's in the hopes of getting drafted or signed to SmackDown and getting the heck off of Monday Night Raw. That would be a pretty interesting little program to put together. Now, there's been some questions and some scuttlebutt and some thoughts on maybe the Cruiserweight title fills that exclusive SmackDown secondary belt role. I disagree, because there was a time and a place where names like Sami Zayn, Dolph Ziggler, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, these people would have all been looked at and they would have said, Cruiserweight, Vanilla Midget, get them out of the main event picture. That day has come and long since gone. So now those guys, that talent, deserves to be in the heavyweight picture. The weight class moniker on the level that the WWE exists on, frankly, is pointless. So don't even fool with it. Don't worry about it. Don't deal with it. No need to have a Cruiserweight title. The women's title is on Raw. That's your exclusive draw to Raw. You want to see the best women in professional wrestling? you tune in every Monday night. You want to see some of the greatest tag teams on the planet, you tune in on Tuesday nights. Let those be the exclusive draws. And let the character-driven talent, your guys like the Wyatts or the Undertaker, or a Roman Reigns, let these guys be on Raw. Then take your wrestling-based talent, your workhorses, like the Club, like Cesaro or Kevin Owens or Sami Zayn, and put them on SmackDown. Now, the last question in the equation, what do you do with the world champion? Well, the world champion floats. The world champion is going back and forth between Raw and SmackDown. And this is another reason you need to build up the US and Intercontinental titles. Because for 2 or 3 months at a time, it's going to become necessary for the Intercontinental or US champions to main event their brand's pay-per-views. So they need to be seen in that light. But when the champ comes to town, and I mean the world champion, then that's the biggest deal on the block, period. So, just like back in the old days of the territories, you have, say, the world champion come to Mid-South for a couple of weeks. That's the biggest deal in the territory. When he gets ready to leave, then the North American heavyweight champion is back on top. Same sort of thing here. So Dean Ambrose can be embroiled in a program from the end of WrestleMania through SummerSlam over on Raw. But once SummerSlam is come and gone, then it's time to slide him over to SmackDown, and now he's on that brand for a few months at a time. You're not going to burn out the world champion. You're not going to have him show up on every pay-per-view ever. You're going to have him show up on 12 pay-per-views a year. But you never stop talking about him, even when he's not around. The world champion, whoever he is, Dean Ambrose for the moment. If you're on SmackDown, but the world champ is embroiled in a program on Raw, you're going to be sitting there and you're going to have Rusev, the U.S. heavyweight champion. You're going to have AJ Styles. You're going to have whoever sitting there on the card saying, I'm the next world heavyweight champion. I want a shot at the U.S. title. You're going to be building them up for that element, for that time frame. That's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be saying, I want a shot at the world title. When Dean Ambrose is done with whomever he's with, then he's going to deal with me next. I'm going to be the next guy in line. So you can still talk about him. You still make it a big deal, because when you have these two brands, these two territories, for want of a better term, then you can make sure you're elevating not just the individual belts, IC and US, but that the world title seems so much more because it's not always around. That's one of the things that used to make the NWA title and the AWA title massive deals in the various territories, because the world champ only came to town every so often. So, I hope that gives you a little insight on what I would do with the WWE Brand Extension, and in a couple of days we'll find out exactly what they are going to do. Maybe I'll talk about it after I get to watch the Hulu edition of SmackDown. But until the next time the announcer's booth comes to you here on the ECS Network, I'm Greg Hunter, and we'll see you next time.